Hello, I'm Bill Faulkner, and welcome to video podcast number 2 for MR Safety Week 2017. In this video podcast, we're going to take a look at the importance of MR patient dress. Now, again, remember, screening and dressing, changing patients should be done in Zone 2 before the patient enters the MRI environment. Now, because I really didn't have any place to put this, I thought I would just put it here. Part of getting a patient prepped and dressed may include taking a look at a patient's medication patches. Do they have any? And whether or not we remove these depends on several things. In particular, what are we scanning? Where is this patch? Might it be in the volume of an RF transmit coil and that sort of thing? But for the most part, let's just not worry about that right now. Let's just talk about these patches. Obviously, if we've got a patch that has metallic backing, and again, it's in the volume of an RF transmit coil, there's a probability that it could heat. And so we're pretty okay about knowing that we need to take a look at possibly removing those. But it's also important to remember that the drug delivery through a patch, by means of a patch, can be affected by heating. And I'll show you an example of this in just a moment. So if the decision is made to remove a medication patch, please remember that you would be discontinuing medications. And this should not be done cavalierly. It shouldn't be done as, oh, well, it's just our routine. You're going to have to take this off. You should consult with the physician that is managing this patient's patch so you can find out if this patient can actually do without the medication for the amount of time that they'd be undergoing the MRI exam. And then the patient's going to need the patch to be reapplied. So your policies and procedures should also include how that occurs, what needs to take place to make sure that the patient's patch is properly replaced. So these are just a few things to think about. I want to show you an example of a non-metallic patch that resulted in some, at minimum, irritations to a patient's arm, shoulder. Now, this patient was wearing a patch that is, the medication is Pinsed. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory or NSAID drug that's used to reduce inflammation, reduce pain for certain conditions. Now, this patient underwent an MRI with these patches and, as you can see, has some irritation. So when I heard of this and they sent me the images, I went to the internet, I went to Pinsed's website, and the information at the bottom comes directly from that website. But what I found that was interesting about it was it said, do not cover the treated skin with a bandage or expose it to heat from a hot tub, heating pad, or sauna, meaning just heat in the environment. And we know that having an MRI is equivalent to basically laying under a heat lamp. And it says that heat or bandaging can increase the amount of the, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but the drug in the patch that would be absorbed through the skin. And this likely is what happened in this situation. So even though a patch does not have a metal backing, it could create issues if heat affects the way that this drug is delivered. Now back to the topic of patient dress. We want to have the patient remove any items that are removable. I don't want anything in the magnet that I don't know about that item. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what it is. I do not want it in the magnet. We need to dress all of our patients in MR appropriate attire. That means no street clothes. Doesn't matter what we're doing. In doing MR safety audits, I've run across numerous sites, some of them really big name institutions that clearly have policies for dressing all patients in out of street clothes. What we find out is in day-to-day practice, this doesn't always occur. People make exceptions for a variety of reasons. And anytime you start making exceptions, then your policies and procedures are essentially worthless. And there's very good reasons why you want to take people out of street clothes. Let me show you some examples. This is from New Zealand. It's an incident that occurred when a knife flew out of a man's pocket and hit him in the eye. And as I understand it, did some damage to his eye. Here is a report of an incident that occurred at a veterans hospital in Indianapolis, 2015. A patient came in. My understanding was he was in sweats, and they simply put him on interviewed him, screened him, put him on the table, took him into the room, and unfortunately he had a gun in his waistband and it discharged. This is an example from some years ago of a female patient undergoing a scan of the left shoulder, and during the first sequence, her blouse caught fire, and this was due to the blouse containing metallic fibers. As you can see, the patient suffered third-degree burns. This is from a colleague, Kristen Harrington, who was doing some applications training, and the technologist did not want to change the patient out of their clothing. They had some sort of an undergarment on, and as you can see, it had some sort of metallic fibers in it. The patient was not burned, but it did cause significant image distortion. I think most people are pretty aware that the tech clothing, Tommy Copper, Under Armour, Lululemon, just trying to think of some off the top of my head, these types of clothing is very common for them to have metallic fibers or invisible microfibers that, again, are metallic. And there have been several reports of these heating. In fact, here's one. This is a report from 2011. A 11-year-old girl presents at an outpatient facility for MR imaging the spine for evaluation of scoliosis. She has a gray undershirt under a long-sleeved white T-shirt, gray sweatpants. And, you know, when we use this, I use this in a presentation and ask technologists, I mean, how many of you really at your facility likely would scan this young lady exactly as she is dressed? And quite honestly, a great number of people raise their hand and say, yeah, you know, we would do it. Well, here's a case where this site did this, and from what I understand, this facility has very good safety policies and procedures. They just didn't change this girl out of street clothes. And as you see, she has significant blistering along her flank. Now, sadly, we also have to consider undergarments in this. The one in the upper left is pretty straightforward. I kind of like that. It just out and out says Tesla. So you know that's some sort of athletic garment. But even standard underwear, and in fact, this is an example made by Hanes for both men and women. The men's in the upper right is named X-Temp Comfort Cool. You read the description, it talks about fibers that help keep you cool and comfortable. Even the ladies have theirs. I found this on Amazon.com. And as you can see, it's Cool Comfort Microfiber. Hipster panties, 8-pack, color may vary. And again, even with just standard underwear, you can find these microfibers. So people don't like to consider this and telling their patients that they have to change out of their underwear. But I think because of the evidence that we have in the literature, we have to at least talk to our patients about the possibility that they may have to take their underwear off because they may contain these microfibers that can heat, and we certainly don't want anything like that to happen in MR. Some time ago, I ran across this reading my news on my iPad and I do each morning, and found that this company has developed a smart bra for ladies, athletic ladies. This company says, if you read down there very briefly, the San Francisco-based company hopes women will ditch the Fitbit or the Apple Watch and forget about having to have an accessory to measure their heart rate and things like that. That's because the smart bra has sensors, electronic sensors in it to track your heart rate, respiration, and that sort of thing. Obviously, wearing that during an MR could be quite problematic. Even just plain T-shirts. Somebody sent me an example of this. I went and looked it up online, and this company makes T-shirts where the ink is created from volcanic ash. And here's an example on the left of a patient wearing such a T-shirt, and then on the right, once they have removed the T-shirt. So again, this is just a few little things to think about during MR Safety Week. Take a look at your policies and procedures, and more so than that, take a look at your daily practices. Is everybody changing everybody out of street clothes? Or is everyone following the policies and procedures? And consider modifying your policies and procedures to address clothing, including underwear, that contains metallic microfibers. So I hope you've got something out of this, and again, given you some food for thought during MR Safety Week. This was number 2 in our series of 5. We have 3 more to go. So I hope you'll take the time to watch those. And again, think about MRI safety. Focus on it each and every day, but certainly during MR Safety Week. So until next time, this is Bill Faulkner. Thanks again, and take care.